You have a beautiful new song out here, Suspended Animation. Talk about the story behind the song.
Well, maybe I should start by talking about the album so that we can get some context about how this all came to be. So, I'm a big fan of storytelling. I love a good story, where it's a book, a movie, a song, and I usually try to apply storytelling to my composing, to my improvisations. Whenever I'm soloing, I always try to establish an arc with what I'm trying to do. I try to establish characters within what I'm trying to do, and it's very very similar to like a novel or a movie. So this time around, what I wanted to do is to ask some of my favorite composers, singer-songwriters, to provide me with a song, with a story that would be probably something that would be close to what is important to me because of the nature of these artists. They usually write about deep things. Sometimes nowadays you can hear songs that mean absolutely nothing. That's like the most common denominator. I love you, you love me, or you love the other guy, whatever. It can be very shallow. And I asked all of these great singer songwriters because I know they have a lot of depth whenever they write. So things that are important to me are social justice, human rights, women's rights, mental health, addiction, depression. Those things that it's very important to talk about nowadays because they permeate our society and our culture in a big way. So I asked them, can you provide me with a song? It could be new, it could be old, it could be a sketch. I can work with anything. Just I need your voice and a click track and any other element you want to give me, and then the permission to reimagine that with my drums and the voice being the two main ingredients. So then I would get tracks with just the voice sometimes, and then I would start, excuse me, start adding instruments. I did everything at home. I played all the instruments. I would start layering tons of guitars, keyboards, drums, and then I also started doing background vocals for most of the songs. So my idea was just to work as a producer with this raw material that was given to me, and then completely transform the song, but keeping the integrity of the form intact. And in some instances, for example, the Mi Palabra with Anna Tijoux, I gave her a drum beat, and then she kind of did her thing on top of that, and then she gave it back to me, and then I redid everything. In Dave Matthews' case, when he gave me he gave me the whole multi-track thing on Pro Tools, and I opened it and I saw all the instruments, everything, and he had like, I don't know, 15, 20 tracks of voices doing different things. So I extracted the voices and just worked with the voices, and then I reworked absolutely everything around it. So if you hear, for example, his version, then my version, then you can get an idea of how much it changed from the original one. And in Suspended Animation's case, I wasn't really aware of Kimbra until, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, when I went to a show at Brooklyn Steel, this really cool venue in Brooklyn. And I actually went to see another band. And then I saw like Kimbra was also on the bill, but I didn't really know who she was. And then when I saw her, she just absolutely blew me away with the show, the performance, the music. It was just, you know, uh, just mind blowing what she did. So when I was doing the record, I thought, man, it would be so cool to have something from her. And then a friend of mine knew her from before, and then I got her contact information. And this is one of the instances where having done Birdman was really helpful, because even if people didn't know me from before, from the jazz stuff that I've done, then they at least had the Birdman reference. Like, oh yeah, yeah, I love Birdman. And then musicians usually love Birdman, so then it was easy to get to them that way. And then she gave me a couple of different options of things she was working on, and then I actually did both completely from beginning to end, reworked them, reimagined them, mixed them, produced them, and then sent her both, and then she picked suspended animation, which then we did a video for it. I mean, Kimbra's not in the video, but we did like a visual thing, and it's a very evocative song, obviously, that talks about struggle, mental struggle, and I just think it's just such a beautiful hypnotic thing that she did, and when she gave it to me, it already sounded great. So I added just a lot of drums to it and some other textures, and now that we do it live, of course Kimbra is not touring with us live. It's my wife Tana Alexa that sings it, but it's one of the most extended tunes that we do now, and we open it for like free improvisation. So it has transformed in a really cool way when we play it in concert.
That must mean so much to you that all of these interpretations are just really so incredibly received, not just by the artists that you're sort of reworking, but also about the audience. They're really receptive to these new versions.
It's been really fun to see the reactions of people, because the usual reaction is like, I had no idea what to expect, but I did not expect this, in terms of the whole show. Because people know me for mostly my jazz playing, my jazz composing, the jazz people I've worked with for many years, like Pat Metheny or Chick Corea, or my previous band, Migration. So this is a very different one, where we're really honing on the songs that were given to me, but we're also expanding greatly live. And people, I have to say that the reactions have been incredibly positive and surprising. They tend to be just not expecting what we give them, but they end up liking it, because you can give them something they didn't expect and hate it. So the good thing is that they have been liking it.
Was there one song in particular on this album that really challenged you creatively, or did they all seem to find you so fast?
They all were challenging. I mean, every time I would start with a song, I'll be like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? Because obviously I wanted to be loyal and faithful to the song, but I also wanted to do something completely different from what was there before, what they had given me. And one of my goals was to surprise the artist that gave them to me. I wanted them to hear it for the first time and be like, whoa, what the hell is this? But in a good way. So I was nervous every time I would send the finished track back, because this was a collaboration in a very different way than you usually collaborate with somebody, where, okay, you give me something and then I work on it a little bit, I send it to you, you tell me what you think, then we start working from there, and then we start adjusting our creative beliefs into the process. But this one was not like that. They gave me the original thing, and then I finished it completely without asking them for their opinion or anything. And I was just really hoping it would resonate with the artists. And if songs that were really very linear and hypnotic, I made like really effervescent and epic in many ways. So I really kind of changed the nature, did like a remix basically of a song, but like an extreme remix. For instance, Dave Matthews' song, when he gave it to me, it's all for musicians out there. It's all in 4/4, which is the most common time signature in rock. And then, because I'm a little bit of a nutcase when it comes to rhythm, because I play drums, I did some things in 9/4, which is just never used that on rock. And then 7/4 and other parts, which you never use on rock. and then 6/8, which you never use in rock. So I was like, man, I hope he doesn't think it's too much. And I sent it to him, and luckily he loved it, and he even wanted to make a video for the song. So we did that as well.
Is there a song then that is a personal favorite for you, or one that kind of holds a special significance for you? Maybe you worked on it the longest, maybe you just really love how the sound turned out.
Uh, I mean, all of them are my favorite in a way, but I think one of the most poignant ones is the one that the collaboration with Becca Stevens called "The Bucket," because she grabbed the text, which was a soliloquy from a play that a few inmates at the Oregon State Penitentiary wrote together, and it won an award. So then she ran into this text from a man named Sterling Cunio, who had a horrible, horrible childhood. One of those horror stories that since the day he was born, it was just challenging. And he ended up being involved in a double homicide when he was 16. And he got 2 consecutive life sentences for it at 16, which is supposed to be unconstitutional because he was a minor. But they put him in jail anyway. And there he spent 9 years intermittently in solitary confinement. So he had to find ways to basically save his soul from the situation. And he started reading, writing poetry, teaching others to do the same thing in prison. And he just started kind of rising above his situation. And so Becca found this text, which was just when you hear it, is just incredibly poignant. And then she wrote music to it and then sent it to me. And then I reworked the whole thing she gave me. And when it was all said and done, we realized that we needed permission from Sterling Cunha, who was in prison. So thanks to the fact that Becca's husband has a foundation that brings music to prisons, she was able to get in touch with Sterling's partner, and we actually spoke on the phone with him from inside prison and showed him the song from our phones just to get his permission, his approval. And he heard it, and he was really moved that we used his words for a project like this. He loved the idea, and he gave us his blessing. So it was a trip to talk to somebody that was in that situation, and he sounded so peaceful and so elevated, just kind of floating above obviously what his situation was. They had been trying to appeal his sentence for many years because the unconstitutionality of the situation. And then I got the news a couple of months ago that his sentence had been commuted last November by the governor of Oregon. So now he's a free man, and he's helping others readjust to society that are coming out of prison, and he's doing it through literature, through poetry, through love, and is just an incredible redemption story.
My goodness, full circle. That's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and that's why that song is so special, I think, from the record.
You're a part of social media. What kind of fan response then have you been receiving? I know you mentioned when you perform them in person, have you gotten specific responses from fans that kind of really touch you and resonate with you about specific songs?
Well, in general, the response from anybody that has heard it is that they're surprised and they're moved by it. I think it has had an emotional connection with people because of the nature of the material, the way the songs are built, the way the songs were written is beautiful, and is just masterful by all these incredible composers. And then what I try to do is just kind of pay tribute to some of the most iconic records that I've heard in my life. For example, So by Peter Gabriel, or The Joshua Tree by U2, that are incredibly well produced albums that have layers upon layers of sounds and production. And I think when you put so much work into something, and you kind of put a lot of details that might be hidden at first sight, but then you keep listening and you keep discovering things. And I think this album has had that effect, that it seems like people like to listen to it over and over again. Whereas some albums, you listen to it once and maybe there's one song that sticks with you. But I feel like people have been really checking out the whole record, because the songs are all so different from each other, but they all were done with so much emotion, from starting from the composers, and then me being involved with them for so long, because I did it during the pandemic mostly. So then I really had time to live with the songs
Right.
and listen to them over and over again. And in this kind of project, it's hard to know when you're done, when you finish, because you can keep adding things, you can keep
Of course.
shifting, so to speak, things all over the place. So I would listen and listen and be like, there's something that bothers me. So then I could go back to the song and keep working on it. Or sometimes I'll be like, I think it's done, because there's nothing that is bothering me about the song, and I think that the flow is right. So the emotional response from people that have heard it is very, very moving for me.
Good. That means your hard work is validated, and also it means that you rework these in a way that really makes people moved. And I think that's what any artist really wants. Um,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, if you don't make that emotional connection, I think you're doing something wrong. It could be too brainy. Jazz can be too brainy, and I've done projects, my projects, and other projects that, looking back, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's it's a lot of information. It's a lot of, it's good music, but sometimes you are forgetting a little bit about bringing people in. How are you going to bring people into your journey? How are you going to make it accessible? And making it accessible doesn't mean that you're going to dumb it down. But I think you can make it accessible, make it deep at the same time. And that was really kind of my goal with this project.
what's next for you then? Have you been working on any new singles? Are you just focused right now on Shift at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the way the cycle works is you work on the production, on the album, you put all the music together, and then you put all the artwork together and the credits. And this one was especially hard because there's so many people involved, with so many managers, publishing companies, and they're big artists that have a lot of following. So we had to be really careful on how to do everything. So we took a long to do is obviously be just to kind of bring it home, the fact that this album is out there, because it's a weird time. I think it's important to talk about how hard it is out there right now for us musicians to play live, to tour. Flights are incredibly expensive. Gas is expensive. If you rent a car, if you rent a van, I mean, you're incurring on so many expenses. Fees are going down, of course, because promoters are unsure if people are going to show up. People are not buying tickets in advance usually. The economy is hurting everybody, so we're at the bottom end of the totem pole of disposable income. So it seems like people don't have any problems to go and fill the Bad Bunny concert for hundreds and hundreds of dollars they pay. but to pay $20 to go and see, some of the best musicians on the planet be just feet away seems like a huge expense. So it's really really hard out there, and sometimes you feel incredibly small because you feel like you have no pull. You see all this incredibly successful artists just filling out stadiums, and then you have problems filling just the smallest venues, in the jazz circuit. So it can be very disheartening, but you have to keep remember why we're doing this, and I think the reason why we keep doing this is because making good art that has depth, that is done well, that you put all your heart and soul into it, it's almost like a form of protest. It's almost like a form of resistance to the lowest common denominator syndrome that is permeating culture. So to do things in the best you can and present your project the best way you can and really think about what you're doing conceptually, the way you execute it, even if you're doing something with no lights and no big screens because you have no budget to do production, just the way you present your music and your ideas and what's behind what you're trying to do. I think it resonates with people. Even when we've had trouble filling places, the people that are there are just moved by what's going on, and that to me that's the main goal. You can go to a huge concert with a huge production and not be moved one bit. Yes, you're excited by the size of it, but the content to me is just what should always come first. And we have to keep reminding ourselves that that's why we're doing what we're doing, because doing things right and doing things with depth is like the counterculture right now, because the norm is not what these things usually are, for people. It's just shallowness, and just trying to sell, and we're not about that, obviously.
Well, you do make such beautiful music, and I think this album is such a great testament to the talent that you bring to the table as well. What would you like to say to everyone who are fans and supporters of the music you make?
Well, I think more than ever, because of the points that I just made, is just so important for people to come and support live music, because it really is our lifeline. And what happens is that, let's say somebody really likes me, but they're like, oh, well, I already saw him a couple of times a few years ago. So, there's nothing new probably that I can expect. So the problem that happens is that if you come to a town and not enough people show up, then the promoter that put on the show is not going to want to bring you back. So then there's going to be one less place that you're going to be able to play. And then if people don't support the concert, and they're not there to buy the little bit of merch that I could bring to make a little extra money, then it starts becoming unsustainable to keep touring and to keep bringing deep quality music around. So I would just say, for the people that do it, we're incredibly thankful, and it's a privilege to play in front of people that want to listen to you. And for people that don't support live music, because it's so much easier just to stay home and just watch YouTube videos or Netflix. So it's a lot of effort, to go out, and everybody's is hurting economically. So but it's very important that if you like music, if you like live music, and if you like deep music, that it's a little bit of sacrifice that everybody has to make to keep the ball rolling. Otherwise it's going to start disappearing more and more.
We have to make sure there's people coming to the concerts and making sure that they're making purchases to support the artists. I was talking to a band the other day, and they said, um, going to California, they do it just because they want to play and there's a request from them to play. It while they still get paid to go, it costs almost as much as taxes to actually perform there, so it sort of washes the
Right.
whole thing out, but they do it for the music and the people who wanna hear it, so, I
Yeah,
really
and obviously, I'm mostly a jazz musician, so whoever thinks that we're in it for the money, they're they're very wrong. Of course, we're in it for the music, but we can only do the music if there's enough support from audiences. And now we're about to do our West Coast run, so just to fly 5 people over there, and then have to rent vans to drive around, um, is just incredibly expensive.
Mhm,
And nowadays, being a band leader is it's like being a restaurant owner. If people don't show up, then you're not going to make any money, but you still have to pay all your staff, and I have to pay everybody. And if there's anything left for me, great. Sometimes there's good amount left, sometimes there's just enough, sometimes there's no money left, and sometimes you lose money. So it's just really unpredictable out there. So it would definitely help if people bought a little bit more of tickets in advance, so that promoters would be able to gauge how much publicity they need to do for a show, because sometimes you can fill the place the same day, but
mhm.
it's completely nerve-wracking to be not knowing what's going to happen until the day of the show, and that's been kind of the norm usually lately. So I hope that paradigm changes soon.